On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Thank you to all our amazing channel members for your generous support.
Bob Hope, one of the most enduring entertainers of the 20th century, passed away from natural causes on July 27, 2003, just 2 months after celebrating his 100th birthday. His death marked the end of an era in American comedy and show business, closing the final curtain on a man who had become a symbol of humor, patriotism, and tireless public service throughout the 20th century. Hope's passing reflected a generation that was slowly fading, a generation defined by World War II, radio comedy, and the golden age of Hollywood. For over 6 decades, he remained a household name, known not only for his quick wit and impeccable comedic timing, but also for his unwavering support of U.S. troops. His famous USO tours, spanning from World War II through the Gulf War, became a defining part of his legacy, blending entertainment with a deep sense of civic duty. In many ways, Hope personified the idealized American values of optimism, hard work, and gratitude toward service members. The immediate aftermath of his death was marked by an outpouring of tributes from across the political and cultural spectrum. Flags flew at half-staff, and statements from presidents and celebrities alike recognized not only his contributions to entertainment, but also to national morale. His death, though peaceful and expected due to age, symbolized the passing of a generation that had shaped the cultural identity of modern America. Unlike the shocking or tragic ends that define the deaths of many public figures, Hope's longevity and graceful departure allowed for a reflective celebration of a life well lived. In this sense, his death did not dramatically shift history, but did amplify his legend. It underscored how deeply woven he had become into the national fabric, through radio, film, television, and live performance. Hope's legacy lives on in numerous forms: a namesake airport in Burbank, California, tributes at the Library of Congress, and countless recordings that continue to inspire laughter. His life and death illustrate the human desire to find joy amidst turmoil and to use humor as a bridge between people and generations. In remembering Bob Hope, we are reminded that mortality is inevitable, but legacy, shaped by service, talent, and compassion, can endure. We immortalize such figures not just with monuments, but with the values they embodied and the laughter they gave. James Mason, the quintessential English actor known for his velvety voice and sophisticated screen presence, died of a heart attack on July 27, 1984, at the age of 75. His death, from natural causes, came at a time when Hollywood was transitioning from the golden age of classical cinema into the modern blockbuster era. Mason, who had worked with legends like Alfred Hitchcock and Stanley Kubrick, represented a generation of performers defined by nuance, restraint, and intellectual gravitas. His passing didn't send cultural shockwaves like the untimely deaths of rock stars or political figures, but it marked the end of a cinematic archetype, the urbane, eloquent anti-hero. In films such as A Star is Born, 1954, and Lolita, 1962, Mason delivered performances that were layered and morally complex, challenging audiences to think beyond surface charm. His characters often reflected post-war anxieties, men of class and intelligence, grappling with internal disillusionment or ethical decline. As cinema evolved into flashier, action-driven entertainment, Mason's death symbolized the quiet fading of a more contemplative form of storytelling. The immediate consequence of his death was a resurgence of interest in his work, particularly among film scholars and cinephiles who valued the golden era of British and American cinema. Retrospectives and critical re-evaluations emerged, appreciating his craftsmanship and the restraint he brought to the screen, qualities increasingly rare in the more bombastic performances of the late 20th century. Though he never sought the spotlight off-screen, Mason's legacy lives on through his enduring filmography and the reverence held by actors and directors who followed. His influence can be seen in performances that prize emotional subtlety and character complexity over spectacle. James Mason's death invites reflection on how we perceive mortality in those who elevate culture rather than dominate it. While not a political leader or global celebrity in the modern sense, his contribution to the arts reminds us that power can be quiet, and memory can be preserved not just in headlines, but in lasting artistic expression. Through curated film collections, documentary tributes, and continued academic study, Mason remains immortalized, not as a man of scandal or spectacle, but as an actor who gave voice to the intellectual and emotional struggles of his time. In remembering him, we acknowledge the enduring power of quiet excellence. Tony Dow, beloved for his role as Wally Cleaver on the iconic television series Leave It to Beaver, passed away on July 27, 2022, at the age of 77. His death, due to complications from liver cancer, marked the quiet end of a figure whose presence had become synonymous with a more innocent vision of American family life. In many ways, Dow's passing was not only the loss of an actor, but of a cultural symbol. The golden boy of 1950s television, forever frozen in the black and white glow of post-war optimism. Dow's death was natural, but it came during a period of global uncertainty and shifting cultural identities. In the 1950s, his character Wally represented the idealized American teenager, respectful, athletic, and morally upright. That image resonated deeply during a time when the country sought stability after the upheaval of World War II. Fast forward to 2022, and the world into which he departed was starkly different. Fragmented, fast-paced, and more complex in its portrayal of youth and family. Dow's quiet exit thus highlighted the contrast between past ideals and present realities. The immediate response to his passing was an outpouring of tributes, particularly from fans and fellow actors who had grown up watching or working alongside him. His death didn't alter the course of global history, but it prompted a nostalgic re-evaluation of American television's formative years. Media outlets reflected on how Leave It to Beaver shaped perceptions of family, masculinity, and morality. For many, Dow's death served as a reminder of a time when popular culture offered simpler answers to life's challenges, even if those answers weren't always complete or inclusive. Dow later became an artist and sculptor, channeling his creativity into works that explored emotion and form beyond the screen. This second act of his life further deepened public appreciation for him, not just as Wally Cleaver, but as a reflective, sensitive individual who navigated fame with humility. His legacy reminds us that mortality doesn't erase cultural memory, it enriches it. We immortalize figures like Tony Dow not through towering monuments, but through the everyday artifacts of shared culture, reruns, interviews, sculptures, and the quiet warmth of remembered characters. In honoring such individuals, we preserve not only their contributions, but the eras they helped define. Mary Alice, an Emmy and Tony award-winning actress best known for her role as the wise and maternal Letitia Letty Bostick on A Different World, and as the Oracle in the Matrix Revolutions, passed away peacefully in her Manhattan home on July 27, 2022, at the age of 85. Her death, from natural causes, marked the end of a luminous career that quietly reshaped representations of Black womanhood and spiritual resilience in American media. Born in Mississippi and raised in Chicago, Mary Alice Smith came of age during the Civil Rights Movement, and her work consistently reflected themes of dignity, depth, and endurance. Her portrayals, often of nurturing, strong women, offered more than entertainment. They were cultural statements that pushed against the flat stereotypes traditionally assigned to black women on screen. Her passing came at a time when Hollywood continued grappling with diversity and representation, reminding the public of the trailblazing efforts made by actors like Alice decades prior. The immediate consequences of her death weren't dramatic in a geopolitical sense, but the emotional resonance was profound within the artistic community. Tributes poured in from actors, directors, and fans, many of whom credited her work with shaping their understanding of grounded, authentic character work. Her performances were not loud, but they were unforgettable, imbued with quiet power and commanding presence. In life, Mary Alice chose roles that often emphasized intergenerational wisdom and emotional nuance. In The Matrix Revolutions, she stepped into the role of the Oracle, a mystical guide representing balance and foresight, originally played by Gloria Foster. It was a fitting metaphor for Alice's own position in the acting world, a stabilizing, enriching force whose impact transcended screen time. Her death reflects a broader truth about mortality and memory. The quiet passings of artists often echo the loudest through time. We don't just mourn them, we replay their words, their gestures, their meanings. Mary Alice is immortalized through every student who saw themselves in Letty, through every stage actor inspired by her Tony-winning turn in Fences, and through every viewer moved by her grace on screen. In remembering her, we confront the deeper human yearning to be seen and understood. Mary Alice achieved that, and left behind a legacy that will continue to comfort, challenge, and inspire generations to come. Sagenol Grant, a respected Native American actor, dancer, and motivational speaker, passed away peacefully of natural causes on July 27, 2021, at the age of 85. A proud member of the Sac and Fox Nation of Oklahoma, Grant was more than a performer. He was a cultural ambassador who carried the weight of history, identity, and survival in every role and public appearance. Grant's death marked the loss of a vital voice at a time when Indigenous stories and representation were finally beginning to emerge more prominently in mainstream media. Having appeared in films like The Lone Ranger and TV shows such as Breaking Bad, Grant often portrayed characters rooted in spiritual depth and cultural authenticity. His portrayals were dignified, often infused with a quiet wisdom that challenged the historically one-dimensional stereotypes of Native peoples in entertainment. The values of Grant's era, particularly the increasing emphasis on cultural reclamation and visibility, were mirrored in his life's work. He became a symbol of perseverance and pride for Indigenous youth navigating the modern world while trying to preserve their heritage. His death came amid a larger reckoning with the treatment of Native Americans in both history and the present, whether through the painful revelations about residential schools or the ongoing fight for land and environmental rights. Grant's passing highlighted the fragility of oral histories and the urgency of honoring elders who embody ancestral knowledge. While his death did not shift the geopolitical landscape, it left a noticeable void in the artistic and cultural spheres. Tributes poured in from Native and non-Native communities alike, acknowledging his grace, generosity, and unwavering commitment to his people. In many ways, his legacy was amplified in death, reminding the broader public of the deep wells of culture and resilience embedded in Indigenous experience. Grant's memory is preserved through storytelling, a cornerstone of Native tradition. He is immortalized not only in his film roles but also in the ceremonial songs he danced to, the youth he mentored, and the public speeches where he reminded listeners of the sacredness of the earth and the power of unity. His life and death invite reflection on humanity's relationship with legacy, identity, and remembrance. Through art, community, and ceremony, we continue to honor those, like Sagenol Grant, who lived as bridges between the past and the future, embodying dignity in every step. Binnie Barnes, the spirited English actress known for her bold screen presence and roles that often defied traditional expectations of women, died of natural causes on July 27, 1998, at the age of 95. Her passing marked the end of an era that spanned the golden age of both British and Hollywood cinema, a time when women in film were too often relegated to background roles. Barnes challenged that narrative throughout her career, portraying confident, assertive women who could match or surpass their male counterparts. Born in London in 1903, Barnes entered the film industry during a period of transformation. She built a name for herself in British cinema before transitioning to Hollywood, where she appeared in numerous films throughout the 1930s and 1940s. Her roles in The Private Life of Henry VIII, in Old California, and The Spanish Main showcased her versatility and magnetism. She resisted the era's restrictive norms, often turning down roles she deemed too submissive, reflecting her personal rejection of female stereotypes in a male-dominated industry. Her death from natural causes, after a long and accomplished life, contrasts with the often tragic fates of many stars of early Hollywood. It symbolizes a life lived with intention and agency, a rare feat for actresses of her generation. By the time she passed away, the world of cinema had evolved, in part due to trailblazers like Barnes, who insisted on more nuanced and empowered portrayals of women. The immediate impact of her death was not headline-grabbing, yet within film circles, her legacy sparked renewed interest in the women of early cinema who paved the way for modern representations of strength and independence on screen. She may not have shifted the trajectory of history at the moment of her death, but her life's work contributed to a broader cultural shift toward gender equality in entertainment. Barnes is remembered through the enduring presence of her films and the strong, unconventional characters she brought to life. She is immortalized in retrospectives on women in film, academic discussions on gender roles in early cinema, and in the very fabric of Hollywood history. Her death reminds us that mortality may claim the individual, but it cannot erase the power of a legacy built on courage, talent, and resistance to conformity. Through film, we continue to celebrate and remember those who dared to challenge the status quo, like Binnie Barnes. Zeni Cures, one of Greece's most iconic actresses, passed away on July 27, 1992, at the age of 60, after a long battle with cancer. Her death marked the end of a luminous era in Greek cinema and theater, where her powerful performances, elegance, and resilience had captivated audiences for decades. Though her passing was natural, it was deeply symbolic of the quiet but determined strength she exhibited throughout her career and personal life, qualities that reflected the cultural and political tides of her time. Born in Athens in 1932, Cures rose to fame during a period of national uncertainty and artistic rebirth in post-World War II Greece. She became a defining figure of the golden age of Greek cinema in the 1950s and 1960s, starring in films like Lola, The Red Lanterns, and The Crucible, where her portrayals of complex, emotionally rich women challenged traditional portrayals of femininity. Off-screen, she was known for her activism, particularly her vocal opposition to the military junta that ruled Greece from 1967 to 1974. In fact, her political outspokenness led to her imprisonment, an experience that she later channeled into her work. Cures's death came at a time when Greece was transitioning into a more modern democratic identity. The sorrow that followed her passing was not merely for the loss of an actress, but for the silencing of a voice that had echoed the hopes, fears, and spirit of a generation. Public tributes poured in, theaters dimmed their lights, and many revisited her films, which had become cultural artifacts reflecting Greece's evolution. Her death amplified her legend, casting her as more than a performer, as a cultural beacon. She had moved beyond the screen to become a symbol of intellectual courage, artistic authenticity, and national pride. The foundation created in her name to support cancer patients further cemented her legacy in public health advocacy, showing how personal struggle can be transformed into collective care. In remembering Zeni Cures, we confront the human need to preserve those who have shaped our cultural consciousness. Through film festivals, retrospectives, and scholarly analysis, she is kept alive not only in memory, but in meaning. Her story affirms that mortality may take the person, but through art, activism, and remembrance, their power endures. William Wiler, one of Hollywood's most acclaimed and versatile directors, passed away on July 27, 1981, at the age of 79. His death was due to a heart attack, peaceful and natural, yet it marked the end of a golden chapter in American cinema. Wiler's career spanned from the silent era to the modern age of filmmaking, and his death invited a profound reflection on the values of precision, resilience, and craftsmanship that defined his generation of filmmakers. Born in 1902 in Mulhouse, then part of the German Empire, Wiler immigrated to the United States and began working in Hollywood in the 1920s. By the 1930s and 1940s, he had established himself as a master of emotionally resonant and technically meticulous films. Works such as Mrs. Miniver, 1942, which rallied American support for World War II, and The Best Years of Our Lives, 1946, which explored the challenges faced by returning veterans, showed Wiler's ability to translate the moral tensions of his time into unforgettable cinematic stories. His passing in the early 1980s, during a period of major transformation in Hollywood, when blockbuster culture and auteur-driven experimentation were reshaping the industry, underscored a generational shift. Wiler's legacy stood as a bridge between classical studio-era storytelling and the more rebellious, stylized cinema of the new Hollywood movement. While his death did not send political shockwaves like the assassination of Lincoln or the execution of Joan of Arc, it marked a significant cultural transition. The industry lost one of its elder statesmen, an architect of cinema's golden age, whose absence left room for a re-evaluation of the values that defined American storytelling. Wiler's influence only deepened after his death. Directors like Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese have cited him as a foundational influence. Film schools teach his framing techniques, his handling of ensemble casts, and his collaborative approach to working with actors. He directed more Oscar-winning performances than any other filmmaker. In reflecting on Wiler's passing, we are reminded of the fragile yet enduring nature of artistic legacy. Though mortality ends a life, the work, especially in film, where time can be preserved, remains. We commemorate figures like Wiler not just through awards or retrospectives, but in the continued shaping of culture through the tools and stories they left behind. His death, while quiet, amplified his legend, reminding us that true influence is often most visible in what comes after.